The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark void between star systems. It was huge, bigger than most moons, with shining metal walls and bright lights that could be seen from very far away. Today was special. Today was the day when all the powerful alien races would show off their best warships. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Persistence. He looked out through the front window at the station getting bigger as they got closer. His ship was small compared to the others around them. Very small. The Persistence was only 200 meters long, and it looked old and beaten up. "Captain, we are getting close to the docking bay," said his navigator, Jang Mi-kyung. She was a young woman with short black hair and calm eyes. "The other ships are already there." Kim Tae-ho nodded. He was a tall man in his 40s with graying hair at the sides. His uniform was clean but simple, not fancy like what the aliens wore. "Good. Let's see what they think of us today." Through the window, they could see the other ships that had come for the show. There was a Vrex Empire ship that was over 1 kilometer long. It was dark gray with sharp edges and looked like it could destroy a planet. Next to it was a Thalan ship that seemed to flicker in and out of sight, like it was not completely there. "Look, at that Keth battleship," said Lee Do-yun, the chief engineer. He was a stocky man with thick glasses who always had grease on his hands. "It must be 3 times bigger than our whole ship." Choi Soo-jin, their communications officer, was listening to the radio chatter from the other ships. She was a quiet woman with long hair tied back in a neat ponytail. "Captain, they are talking about us. They want to know why such a small ship is here." "What are they saying?" Kim Tae-ho asked. "They think we got lost. Some of them are laughing." Choi Soo-jin looked uncomfortable. "A Vrex commander named Park. Jiwoo just called us the human toy boat." Kim Tae-ho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Let them laugh. We have our orders." The Persistence docked at one of the smaller bays. When Kim Tae-ho and his crew walked out, they could see alien beings everywhere. Some were tall and thin with 4 arms. Others looked like walking rocks, with glowing eyes. There were creatures that floated in the air and others that moved on many legs like giant insects. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Then the whispering started. "Are those the humans?" asked a tall blue alien with tentacles for hair. "They look so weak," said another creature that looked like a walking tree. "And their ship is so tiny." Kim Tae-ho kept walking with his crew behind him. They went to the main hall where the presentation would happen. The hall was enormous, with a high ceiling that seemed to go up forever. Floating screens showed images of the different ships that had come to the station. In the center of the hall was a raised platform where representatives from each race would speak. Around the platform were seats for thousands of aliens. The humans were given seats in the back corner, far from the important aliens in the front. As they sat down, the aliens around them continued to whisper and point. Some of them were trying not to laugh out loud. "Look at their clothes," said a red-skinned alien with 6 eyes. "So plain and simple." I heard their ship has no shields, said another. How do they even travel through space? Commander Park Ji-woo of the Vrex Empire was sitting in the front row. He was a large, gray-skinned alien with sharp teeth and small black eyes. He turned around to look at the humans and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I wonder if the humans got confused, he said with a nasty smile. This is a military showcase, not a scrap metal collection. Many aliens laughed at this. Park Ji-woo seemed pleased with himself and continued. Maybe they should go back to their little planet and grow vegetables. Leave the real fighting to the grown-ups. More laughter filled the hall. Kim Tae-ho sat quietly, his face showing nothing. His crew looked angry, but they also stayed quiet. The presentation began when War Marshal Yextar took the stage. Yextar was from a race called the Hegemony. He looked like a giant mantis with golden armor. His voice was deep and echoed through the hall. Welcome, warriors of the galaxy, Yextar said. Today we gather to see the finest weapons and ships that protect our worlds. Each race will show us their greatest military achievement. The first to present was the Vrex Empire. Commander Park Ji-woo walked onto the stage with confidence. Behind him, a huge screen showed images of their massive warships. The Vrex Empire brings you the Destroyer of Worlds, Park Ji-woo announced. This ship is 1,500 meters long and carries enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Its armor can stop any known weapon, and its shields can absorb the energy of a star. The aliens in the audience made impressed sounds. The screen showed the ship firing enormous beams of energy that could be seen from space. Next came the Thalan Confederation. Their representative was a tall, thin being that seemed partly transparent. When it spoke, its voice sounded like it was coming from far away. The Thalan offer the Phase Walker, it said. This ship exists in multiple dimensions at once. It can attack from angles that do not exist in normal space. No enemy can hit what they cannot fully see. The demonstration showed the ship disappearing and reappearing, attacking targets that had no idea where the shots were coming from. The Keth were next. Their representative was a being made of living crystal that sparkled in the light. When it moved, it made a sound like wind chimes. Behold the antimatter fist, the crystal being sang. Our weapons turn matter into pure energy. One shot can delete an enemy ship from existence. There is no defense against the power of creation itself. The screen showed a Keth ship firing a bright white beam. Whatever the beam touched simply disappeared, leaving nothing behind. One by one, each alien race showed off their most powerful weapons. The Zelani had ships that could bend reality around them. The Morvac had weapons that could make things stop existing. The Quantum Collective had ships that could be in many places at the same time. With each presentation, the aliens became more excited and impressed. They cheered and applauded, comparing which weapons were the most frightening. Finally, War Marshal Yextar called for the human representative. And now, Yextar said, and Kim Tae-ho could hear the amusement in his voice. We hear from the humans. Kim Tae-ho stood up and walked to the stage. As he did, the whispers and giggles from the audience got louder. Some aliens were not even trying to hide their laughter anymore. He reached the center of the stage and looked out at the thousands of alien faces staring at him. Most were smiling in a mean way. Others looked bored, like they were waiting for a joke. "I am Captain Kim Tae-ho of the human vessel Persistence," he said in a calm, clear voice. "Our ship is a standard exploration vessel with basic defensive capabilities." The screen behind him showed the Persistence. Compared to all the mighty warships they had just seen, it looked like a child's toy. The hull was patched in several places. The weapons were small and simple. There were no fancy shields or reality-bending technology. The laughter in the audience got louder. Some aliens were pointing at the screen and making jokes to their neighbors. "That's their best ship?" someone called out. "It looks like it might fall apart if you sneeze on it," shouted another. Commander Park Ji-woo stood up in the front row. "Honored War Marshal," he said with fake politeness. "Surely the humans are joking. This cannot be their contribution to galactic defense." War Marshal Yekstar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Captain Kim Tae-ho, are you certain this vessel represents humanity's military capability?" Kim Tae-ho nodded. "It does, War Marshal." The hall erupted in laughter again. Park Ji-woo was laughing so hard he had to wipe tears from his small black eyes. "Perhaps," Park Ji-woo said when he could speak again, "the humans should focus on what they do best: growing food, mining asteroids, running supply ships. Leave the real fighting to species that know what they're doing." Many aliens nodded in agreement. Kim Tae-ho stood quietly on the stage, waiting for the laughter to die down. "Thank you for your presentation, Captain," War Marshal Yekstar said, clearly trying not to laugh. "You may return to your seat." As Kim Tae-ho walked back to his crew, the aliens continued to whisper and chuckle. He sat down next to Lee Do-yun, who was gripping his chair so tightly his knuckles were white. "Captain," Lee Do-yun whispered, "do we really have to listen to this?" "Easy, old friend," Kim Tae-ho whispered back. "Our time will come." Choi Soo-jin was monitoring the communications between the alien ships. "Captain, they're making bets about how long we would last in a real fight. The shortest guess is 30 seconds. "Let them bet," Kim Tae-ho said quietly. "Let them laugh. Let them think they know everything about humans." He looked around at his crew. Nam Ho-seok, their tactical officer, was a young man with sharp eyes who seemed calm despite the insults. Ryu Sang-wook, their quantum engineer, was an older man with gray hair who kept checking a small device in his pocket. "Remember," Kim Tae-ho said to his team, "we are here for a reason. Earth Command sent us here for a very specific purpose. These aliens think they know what humans can do. They think our ship is weak because it looks different from theirs." Jang Mi-kyung nodded. "They judge only by size and flashy weapons." "Exactly," Kim Tae-ho said. "They see the outside, but they don't understand what's inside." The presentations continued for several more hours. Each alien race tried to show off something more impressive than the last. The competition between them was fierce, and the humans could see that these species did not really like each other very much. The Morvac Dominion was next. Their representative was a creature that looked like it was made of living shadow. When it moved, the air around it seemed to get colder. Its voice sounded like whispers from a grave. The Morvac bring forth. "The Void Eater," the shadow creature said. "This vessel carries the deletion cannon. When we fire this weapon, the target does not just die. It stops existing. It never was. Even the memory of it fades from the universe." The screen showed a Morvac ship approaching an asteroid. A beam of pure darkness shot out from the ship. Where the asteroid had been, there was now empty space. But it was worse than empty space. It was like there had never been anything there at all. The aliens in the audience made nervous sounds. Even they seemed frightened by this weapon. "Impressive," War Marshal Yextar said, but Kim Tae-ho could tell. He was worried. Next, we will hear from the Zelani Collective. The Zelani representative floated onto the stage. It looked like a jellyfish made of pure energy, with tentacles that sparked with electricity. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music mixed with thunder. "The Zelani present the Reality Shaper," it sang. "Our ship does not fight in the same universe as our enemies. We change the rules of space and time around us. Gravity flows backward. Light moves in circles. Mathematics becomes poetry. How can anyone fight what makes no sense?" The demonstration showed a Zelani ship surrounded by enemy vessels. Suddenly, the space around the Zelani ship began to twist and bend. The enemy ships found themselves flying in loops, their weapons shooting at empty space, their sensors showing impossible readings. They became so confused they started shooting at each other. "Fascinating," said War Marshal Yextar. "The Quantum Collective will present next." The Quantum Collective's representative was the strangest yet. It looked like 3 different beings standing in the same spot at the same time. When one moved, the others moved differently. When one spoke, the others said different words at the same time. "We are the probability storm," they said together, but each voice said something different. "Our ship exists in all possible versions of reality at once. We attack from every angle that could ever be. We defend against every attack that might happen. We are all possibilities at the same time." The screen showed their ship, but it was hard to look at. It seemed to be many different ships in the same place. Sometimes it was huge, sometimes small. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it was not. The demonstration showed it fighting 100 enemy ships, and somehow it was winning all the battles and losing all the battles at the same time. Kim Tae-ho watched all of this carefully. His crew was taking notes on small devices they kept hidden. Each alien weapon was impressive, but Kim Tae-ho was thinking about something else. He was thinking about weaknesses. "Captain," whispered Nam Ho-seok, their tactical officer, "all of these weapons are very powerful, but they all depend on the same thing." "What's that?" Kim Tae-ho asked quietly. "They all assume the universe works the same way for everyone," Nam Ho-seok said. "They make their weapons stronger or stranger, but they never think about changing the basic rules." Kim Tae-ho nodded. This was exactly what he had been thinking. The presentations went on. The hegemony showed ships that could eat energy and grow bigger. The crystal mines displayed vessels that could think faster than light and predict every possible move an enemy might make. The Bio Collective brought living ships that could heal themselves and evolve new weapons during battle. With each presentation, the aliens became more excited. They were comparing their weapons, arguing about which was most powerful. Some were making deals to share technology. Others were making threats about what would happen if anyone tried to use these weapons against them. Through it all, the humans sat quietly in their corner. Most of the aliens had forgotten they were even there. Finally, War Marshal Yextar stood up again. "This has been a most impressive display," he announced. "The galaxy's defenses are stronger than ever. With such powerful weapons, we can face any threat." Commander Park Ji-woo stood up in the front row. "War Marshal, if I may say something." "Of course, Commander." Park Ji-woo turned to face the audience. "Today we have seen the finest military technology in the galaxy. Ships that can destroy planets, bend reality, and delete things from existence. We are truly the masters of war." The aliens cheered and applauded. "But," Park Ji-woo continued, "we should remember that not all species are capable of such achievements. Some races are better suited for simpler tasks." He looked directly at the humans as he said this. Many aliens turned to look at them too. "The humans, for example," Park Ji-woo said with a cruel smile. "Their little ship is perfect for carrying supplies or scouting empty systems. We should not expect them to understand real warfare. That is work for superior species." More aliens began to nod and murmur in agreement. "Perhaps," said the Morvac shadow creature, "the humans could run messages between our fleets. Their small ship would be good for that." "Or mining operations," suggested a crystal mind. "Simple, repetitive work that does not require advanced thinking." The Zilani energy beings sparkled with what might have been laughter. "We could give them maps to follow, very simple maps with pictures instead of words," the insults continued. The aliens seemed to be enjoying themselves, thinking of more and more demeaning jobs they could give to the humans. Kim Tae-ho and his crew listened to all of it without changing expression. Lee Do-yun was getting angry again. His hands were shaking and his face was turning red. "Captain," he whispered, "how much longer do we have to sit here and listen to this?" "As long as it takes," Kim Tae-ho said calmly. "Let them talk. Let them show us exactly what they think of us." Choi Soo-jin was still monitoring communications. "Captain, the alien commanders are sending messages to each other. They're making plans to divide up human space between them. They want to use our planets as supply bases." "Are they now?" Kim Tae-ho said. His voice was still calm, but there was something cold in his eyes. Ryo Sang-wook, the quantum engineer, checked his pocket. "Device again, Captain. I'm getting signals from Earth. They're asking for a status report." "Tell them everything is going according to plan," Kim Tae-ho said. War Marshal Yextar was speaking again. "Given what we have seen today, I believe we should reorganize our defense strategies. The most powerful species should take responsibility for protecting the galaxy's important systems. The lesser species can handle support roles." "An excellent idea," said Commander Park Ji-woo. "The humans can manage supply lines while the real warriors handle any serious threats." Yes, agreed the Keth crystal being. They can carry food and spare parts to our ships. Very important work, even if it is simple. The Thalan representative flickered in and out of visibility as it spoke. We should give them very detailed instructions, and perhaps supervisors to make sure they do not get confused. Kim Tae-ho stood, up slowly. The movement was so sudden and unexpected that many aliens stopped talking and turned to look at him. "War Marshal," Kim Tae-ho said in a clear, strong voice. "If I may ask a question." Yextar looked surprised. Yes, Captain. What is your question?" "You have all shown us very impressive weapons," Kim Tae-ho said. "Ships that can destroy planets, change reality, delete things from existence. Very powerful indeed." The aliens nodded, pleased with the compliment. "But I am curious," Kim Tae-ho continued. "What happens when you face an enemy that your weapons cannot affect? What do you do when your reality bending meets something that bends reality back? What happens when your deletion beams hit something that refuses to be deleted?" The hall became very quiet. The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. "Commander," Park Ji-woo laughed, but it sounded forced. "Captain, I think you misunderstand how warfare works. When you have the most powerful weapons, you win. It is very simple." "Is it?" Kim Tae-ho asked. "Have any of you ever fought an enemy that could adapt to your weapons, that could learn from your attacks and become immune to them?" "Impossible," said the Morvac shadow creature. "Nothing can survive deletion from existence. Nothing can resist reality manipulation," added the Zilani. "All possibilities are covered by quantum probability," said the 3-in-1 collective representative, Kim. Tae-ho nodded slowly. "I see. So you have never faced such an enemy. You have never had to fight something that could change and grow stronger during battle. Something that could turn your own weapons against you." "No such enemy exists," War Marshal Yextar said firmly. "Our combined fleets are invincible." "I hope you are right," Kim Tae-ho said quietly. He sat back down. The aliens looked at each other, confused by the humans' strange questions. What was he trying to say? Why was he talking about impossible? Enemies? Commander Park Ji-woo decided to take control of the conversation again. "War Marshal, I think this proves my point. The humans do not understand real warfare. They worry about imaginary problems, instead of focusing on practical solutions." "Agreed," said Yextar. "Captain Kim Tae-ho, I appreciate your concerns, but I assure you that the galaxy's defenses are more than adequate for any threat we might face." The emergency alarm started screaming through Nexus Prime Station 3 hours after the presentations ended. The sound was loud and piercing, designed to cut through any noise and get everyone's attention immediately. Red lights flashed in all. The corridors and automated voices began speaking in dozens of different alien languages. Kim Tae-ho was in his quarters on the Persistence when the alarm began. He had been reading reports from Earth Command on his personal tablet. The reports were not good news, but they were not surprising either. He had been expecting this moment for months. "Captain to the bridge," came Choi Soo-jin's voice over the ship's communication system. "We have an urgent situation." Kim Tae-ho walked quickly to the bridge. His crew was already at their stations, looking tense but ready. Through the front windows, he could see alien ships around the station lighting up with activity. Emergency lights were flashing on every vessel. "What's the situation?" Kim Tae-ho asked. "The outer defense perimeter has been breached," Jang Mi-kyung reported from her navigation station. "Multiple colony worlds have gone silent. The Kepler system, the new Centauri colonies, and the entire Vega sector." "Gone silent?" Kim Tae-ho asked, though he already knew what that meant. "No communications, no sensor readings, nothing," Choi Soo-jin said. "It's like they just stopped existing." Lee Do-yoon looked up from his engineering console. "Captain, the energy readings from those systems are impossible. Whatever hit them consumed everything. Planets, stars, space stations, even the background radiation." Nam Ho-seok was studying tactical displays. "Captain, the attack pattern is not random. Whatever is doing this is moving in a straight line toward the galaxy's core. They're coming. This way." Ryu Sang-wook checked his quantum sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting massive space-time distortions along the path of destruction. The fabric of reality itself is being damaged." Kim Tae-ho nodded grimly. "The Devourers have arrived." On the main screen, War Marshal Yextar's image appeared. The giant mantis-like alien looked scared, which was unusual. Yextar was known for being calm even in the worst situations. "Attention all vessels," Yextar announced. "We have received reports of an unknown enemy force attacking our outer territories. All military ships are ordered to form defensive formations immediately. This is not a drill." The image switched to show a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked the areas that had been attacked. There were dozens of them, and more were appearing every few minutes. Commander Park Ji-woo's voice came over the communication system. "War Marshal, the Vrex Empire's outer fleet is moving to intercept. Our destroyer of worlds and 15 support vessels are en route to the Kepler system." "Excellent," Yextar replied. "The fallen Confederation will take the new Centauri sector. Keth forces will defend the Vega approach. All other species, prepare your strongest ships." Kim Tae-ho listened to the alien commanders making their plans. They were confident, even excited. This was their chance to use all those powerful weapons they had been showing off. "Captain," Choi Soo-jin said quietly, "they want us to join the defense fleet." "Do they now?" Kim Tae-ho asked. On the screen, War Marshal Yextar was speaking again. "All available vessels will participate in the defense of the galaxy. Even support ships can be useful for reconnaissance and supply runs." Commander Park Ji-woo laughed over the radio. "War Marshal, surely you don't mean the humans should join the battle fleet. Their little ship would just get in the way." "Perhaps they could stay far behind the real warships," suggested another alien voice. "They could watch and learn how proper warfare is conducted." "An excellent suggestion," Yextar agreed. "Captain Kim Tae-ho, you and your vessel will join. The fleet is observers. Stay well back from the combat zone. We would not want any accidents." More alien laughter came over the radio. Kim Tae-ho could hear them making jokes about humans getting scared and running away when the real fighting started. "Understood, War Marshal," Kim Tae-ho said calmly. The Persistence will join the fleet. Good, Yextar said. All ships, prepare for immediate departure. We will show these invaders what happens when they threaten civilized space. The communication ended, and the bridge became quiet except for the sound of the crew working at their stations. Captain, Lee Do-yun said, should I begin preparing the ship for combat? Not yet, Kim Tae-ho replied. First we observe. We let them try their way. Their way is going to fail, Nam Ho-seok said bluntly. The Devourers adapt to everything. Every weapon that hits them just makes them stronger. I know, Kim Tae-ho said. But they need to learn that for themselves. Earth Command was very clear about this. We do not reveal our capabilities unless absolutely necessary. Jang Mi-kyung looked up from her navigation console. Captain, the fleet is forming up. Over 300 ships. Every major species is represented. Through the windows, they could see the massive alien fleet taking shape. The Vrex ships were huge and angular, bristling with weapons. The Thalan vessels flickered in and out of sight as they prepared their dimensional drives. The Keth ships glowed with internal energy, their crystal hulls refracting light in beautiful patterns. Impressive, Kim Tae-ho said. The most powerful fleet ever assembled in galactic history. And it won't be enough, Ryu Sang-wook said quietly. The Persistence took its assigned position at the very back of the fleet formation. The alien ships in front of them were so large that they blocked most of the view forward. This was exactly where the aliens wanted the humans to be, far from any danger, unable to interfere with real warfare. All ships, this is War Marshal. Yextar, came the announcement. We are departing for the Kepler Nebula. Intelligence reports indicate the enemy fleet will arrive there in approximately 6 hours. We will meet them head-on and destroy them completely. The fleet began to move. Hundreds of ships accelerating together was an amazing sight. The space around them filled with the light from thousands of engines. The Persistence followed along at the back, looking tiny compared to the alien warships. Captain, Choi Soo-jin said, I'm monitoring communications between the alien ships. They're very confident. Commander Park Ji-woo is telling his crew that this will be over quickly. What else are they saying? Kim Tae-ho asked. They're making bets about how many shots it will take to destroy the enemy fleet. The highest guess is 5 minutes of combat. Lee Do-yun shook his head. 5 minutes. They have no idea what they're about to face. As the fleet traveled toward the Kepler Nebula, more reports came in from the outer territories. The news got worse with each update. Entire star systems were disappearing. The enemy was not just destroying things, they were consuming them, growing stronger with each attack. Captain, Nam Ho-seok said, studying the tactical reports. The enemy ships are changing. Each attack makes them more resistant to the weapons used against them. The first colonies managed to fight back for a few hours. The recent attacks were over in minutes. Evolution in real time, Kim Tae-ho said. Just like Earth Command predicted, Ryu Sang-wook was monitoring quantum fluctuations. Captain, the space ahead of us is becoming unstable. The enemy is doing something to the fabric of reality itself. Show me, Kim Tae-ho said. The main screen displayed a sensor reading of the space they were heading toward. Instead of the normal patterns of stars and cosmic radiation, there were areas of complete emptiness. Worse than emptiness. Places where the concept of existence itself seemed to be missing. The Devourers don't just eat matter and energy, Kim Tae-ho explained to his crew. They eat the information that tells the universe what should exist. They consume the very idea of things. Jang Mi-kyung looked troubled. Captain, how do you fight something like that? The aliens are about to find out that you can't, Kim Tae-ho said. Not with conventional weapons. Not by building bigger guns or stronger shields. Then how? She asked. Kim Tae-ho smiled, but it was a cold smile. By changing the rules of the game entirely. 3 hours into their journey, the first contact reports started coming in. The advanced scouts had found the enemy fleet. All ships, this is Reconnaissance Unit 7, came a panicked voice over the radio. We have visual contact with hostile forces, counting. There are thousands of them. Describe the enemy vessels, ordered War Marshal Yextar. They're wrong, sir. The ships don't look like they were built. They look like they grew, like living things, but made of metal and energy. And they're eating the space around them. Eating space? Yextar asked. Explain. Wherever they go, stars go out. Planets disappear. The background radiation of the universe just stops. It's like they're unmaking reality as they move through it. Commander Park Ji-woo's voice cut through the radio chatter. Reconnaissance 7, you are obviously confused by some kind of sensor malfunction. Ships cannot eat space. Return to formation and run proper diagnostics on your equipment. Sir, our sensors are working perfectly. The enemy fleet is approaching the nebula. Estimated contact in 30 minutes. War Marshal Yextar's voice was calm and confident. All ships prepare for battle. We will show these creatures what happens when they invade civilized space. Activate all weapon systems. Charge your most powerful guns. Today we write our names in the stars. The alien fleet began to spread out into attack formation. The huge Vrex ships moved to the front, their massive weapons powering up. The first thing the alien fleet saw was darkness. Not the normal darkness of space, but something much worse. It was like a hole in the universe itself was moving toward them. Where this darkness touched, stars simply stopped existing. Not exploded, not burned out. They just weren't there anymore. All ships, maintain formation, War Marshal Yextar commanded over the radio. His voice was steady, but Kim Tae-ho could hear the uncertainty underneath. Prepare to engage the enemy. Commander. Park Ji-woo's massive ship, the Destroyer of Worlds, moved to the front of the formation. Its weapons were already glowing with deadly energy. War Marshal. The Vrex Empire requests permission to fire the first shot. We will show these invaders the power of civilized warfare. Permission granted, Commander. Show them what we can do. The Destroyer of Worlds fired its main cannon. The beam was so bright it lit up the entire nebula. It was a weapon that could crack planets in half, powered by the energy of a captured star. The beam struck the edge of the approaching darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the darkness seemed to ripple, like water when a stone is thrown into it. The beam disappeared into the void, and the darkness kept coming. Direct hit confirmed. reported Park Ji-woo, but he sounded confused. No damage visible. Firing again. This time he fired all of his ship's weapons at once. Dozens of energy beams, missile swarms, and gravity bombs struck the darkness. The attack was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. The darkness absorbed everything. It didn't just stop the weapons, it seemed to eat them, growing slightly, larger with each impact. "What in the name of the void?" Park Ji-woo muttered over the radio. From the darkness, shapes began to emerge. They were ships, but unlike any ships the galaxy had ever seen. They looked like they had grown instead of being built. Their hulls curved and twisted in ways that hurt to look at. Some were covered in what looked like metallic skin that rippled and moved. Others seemed to be made of pure energy held together by impossible mathematics. Enemy vessels emerging from the anomaly, reported a Thalan scout ship. Counting 100, 500, still counting. The Devourer ships moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. But these were not natural creatures. They were something else entirely. Something that had learned to exist in ways that violated the normal rules of the universe. "All ships, open fire," ordered War Marshal Yextar. The alien fleet unleashed everything they had. The Keth fired their antimatter beams that could delete matter from existence. The Thalan ships began their reality-bending attacks, trying to trap the enemy vessels in twisted dimensions. The Morvac shadow ships launched their deletion cannons that could make things stop existing entirely. For the first few minutes, it looked like the alien fleet might win. Several Devourer ships were destroyed by the massive bombardment. They broke apart in flashes of strange light, their twisted hulls coming apart like puzzles being unsolved. "We're hurting them!" shouted a Keth captain over the radio. "Keep firing! We can win this!" But even as the alien weapons destroyed Devourer ships, something terrible was happening. The remaining enemy vessels were changing. Their hulls were becoming more reflective, bouncing back the energy beams. Their shapes were shifting, becoming harder to target with the gravity weapons. "Captain," Nam Ho Seok said quietly to Kim Tae-ho, "they're adapting, just like Earth Command said they would." Kim Tae-ho nodded grimly. He was watching the battle through the Persistence's sensors. "How long before the aliens realize their weapons are becoming useless?" "Not long," Ryu Sang-wook said. He was monitoring the quantum signatures of the battle. "The Devourers are learning from every attack. They're becoming immune to each weapon after being hit by it a few times." On the main screen, they could see the alien fleet's attacks becoming less and less effective. The Keth antimatter beams were now bouncing harmlessly off Devourer hulls. The Thalan reality-bending attacks were being twisted back on themselves. The Morvac deletion cannons were firing at targets that simply weren't there anymore. "This is impossible," Commander Park Ji-woo shouted over the radio. "Our weapons worked a few minutes ago. All ships, adjust frequency and power settings," ordered War Marshal Yextar. "Try different attack patterns." The alien fleet began experimenting with their weapons. They tried firing at different frequencies, using different types of energy, attacking from multiple angles at once. Some of it worked for a while, but each time they found something that could hurt the Devourers, The enemy ships adapted within minutes. Worse, the Devourers were starting to fight back. The first alien ship to die was a Thalan cruiser, a Devourer vessel that looked like a metal. Jellyfish reached out with tentacles made of twisted space-time. The tentacles wrapped around the Thalan ship and began to squeeze. The cruiser's phase shields, which could resist attacks from other dimensions, were useless. The Devourer was attacking from dimensions that didn't exist yet. The Thalan ship screamed over the radio as it was crushed into a ball of compressed matter. Then even that disappeared, consumed by the Devourer's hungry tentacles. Thalan cruiser. Phase Walker has been destroyed, reported a nearby ship. The enemy ate it. There's nothing left. More Devourer ships began to attack. They used weapons that the alien fleet couldn't understand. Some fired beams that made matter forget how to exist. Others launched missiles that arrived before they were fired, attacking ships in the past. A few seemed to attack by changing the mathematical constants that held atoms together. "All ships, evasive action," ordered Yextar. "Maintain formation and keep firing." But the alien formation was already breaking apart. Ships were trying to run from weapons they couldn't comprehend. The careful battle plans were falling apart, as captains realized their enemies were using types of warfare that shouldn't be possible. "Captain," Choi Soo-jin said, monitoring the radio chatter, "the alien commanders are starting to panic. Some of them are talking about retreating." Kim Tae-ho could hear the fear in the alien voices over the radio. These were experienced warriors who had fought in dozens of battles. They had conquered planets and defeated enemy fleets. But they had never faced anything like the Devourers. A Keth battleship tried to ram one of the smaller Devourer vessels. The crystal ship was moving at nearly the speed of light, carrying enough kinetic energy to shatter a moon. It hit the Devourer ship directly. The Devourer ship absorbed the impact completely. Not only did it survive, but it seemed to grow larger and stronger. The Keth battleship bounced off and tumbled away, its crystal hull cracked and leaking atmosphere. "Physical attacks are useless too," Nam Ho Seok observed. "They're not just adapting to energy weapons, they're learning to absorb kinetic force as well." The battle had been going on for an hour now, and the alien fleet was losing badly. They had destroyed maybe 50 Devourer ships, but hundreds more kept coming out of the darkness. And the ones they had destroyed were being replaced by new ships that were immune to whatever had killed their predecessors. "War Marshal," came a desperate voice over the radio. "This is Captain Zex Cole of the hegemony ship Star Crusher. Our weapons are completely ineffective. Request permission to withdraw." "Denied," Yextar replied, but his voice was shaking. "We cannot let these creatures reach the inner systems. All ships keep fighting." "With what?" shouted Commander Park Ji-woo. "Nothing we have can hurt them anymore. They've adapted to everything." As if to prove his point, his ship fired another salvo from its main guns. The energy beams struck a Devourer vessel and were immediately absorbed, making the enemy ship glow brighter. "They're using our own weapons to power themselves," Park Ji-woo said in horror. "Every shot we fire makes them stronger." The Devourers were no longer just defending themselves. They were attacking aggressively, hunting down the alien ships like predators. Their movements were becoming more coordinated, more intelligent. They were learning not just how to resist weapons, but how to fight as a unified force. A group of devourer ships surrounded a Morvac shadow vessel. The alien ship tried to use its deletion cannon, but the beam was reflected back at itself. The Morvac ship deleted itself from existence, leaving only empty space where it had been. "This is madness!" screamed a Zilani captain. "They're turning our weapons against us!" Kim Tae-ho watched the battle with growing sadness. These alien warriors were brave and their weapons were powerful, but they were fighting an enemy that couldn't be defeated with conventional warfare. The Devourers weren't just another alien species with better technology. They were something that operated by completely different rules. "Captain," Lee Do-yun said, "shouldn't we do something? They're getting slaughtered out there." "Not yet," Kim Tae-ho replied firmly. "Earth Command's orders were clear. We observe until all conventional options have been exhausted." How much more exhausted can they get? Jang Mi-kyung asked, gesturing at the screen where another alien ship was being torn apart by devourer weapons. "They still think they can win," Kim Tae-ho said. "Look at their formations. Listen to their communications. They're still trying to fight a normal battle. They haven't accepted that their way of thinking about warfare is completely wrong." As if to prove his point, War Marshal Yextar's voice came over the radio again. "All ships, form up for a concentrated assault." The alien fleet was dying. What had started as the most powerful military force in galactic history was now a scattered group of damaged ships running for their lives. The Devourers had not just won the battle, they had made the very idea of fighting them seem impossible. Commander Park Ji-woo's ship, the mighty destroyer of worlds, was barely holding together. Its hull was cracked in dozens of places, and half of its weapons were gone. The proud Vrex commander who had mocked humans just hours ago now sounded broken and desperate. "War Marshal," Park Ji-woo's voice came over the radio, filled with static and pain. "The Vrex Empire fleet is... We've lost everything. My ship is the only one left, and we're losing power. The enemy weapons, they don't just destroy ships, they're changing the metal itself, making it forget how to be solid." Similar reports were coming in from all across the battlefield. The Thalen ships that could phase through dimensions found that the Devourers could attack them in all dimensions at once. The Keth vessels, with their reality-bending shields, discovered that the enemy could bend reality even more. The Morvac shadow ships that could delete things from existence were being deleted themselves. "All remaining ships, fall back to the nebula. Station," ordered War Marshal Yextar. His voice was no longer the confident tone of a military leader. He sounded like a scared old man who had seen too much death. "We need to regroup and figure out what to do next." But even as the alien ships tried to retreat, the Devourers followed them. The enemy vessels moved through space like sharks following blood in the water. They were no longer just adapting to alien weapons. They were hunting, playing with their prey before finishing them off. Kim Tae-ho watched all of this from the bridge of the Persistence. His ship was still at the back of the formation, forgotten by both sides in the chaos of battle. The aliens had bigger problems than worrying about one small human vessel, and the Devourers seemed to be focusing on the larger, more threatening. "Ships first, Captain," Choi Soo-jin reported. I'm monitoring communications from across the galaxy. The attacks are happening everywhere. The core worlds, the industrial systems, even the capital planet are under assault. How bad is it? Kim Tae-ho asked, though he could guess the answer. Total. Every major military base, every defensive fleet, every fortified system, they're all being overwhelmed. The Devourers are attacking with perfect coordination across thousands of light years simultaneously. Jang Mi-kyung looked up from her navigation console. Captain, how is that possible? Even with faster-than-light communication, coordinating attacks across the entire galaxy should take weeks. Because they're not using our kind of communication, Kim Tae-ho explained. The Devourers exist partially outside normal space-time. What looks like thousands of separate fleets to us might actually be one single entity operating across multiple dimensions. Lee Do-yun was running diagnostics on the ship's hidden systems. Captain, all stealth systems are ready. The aliens still don't know what we really are. Good. Keep it that way for now. On the main screen, they watched another group of alien ships try to make a desperate stand. A combined force of hegemony and crystal mind vessels had formed a defensive circle around a damaged hospital ship that was carrying wounded from earlier battles. They were trying to protect the injured while the medical ship's engines recharged. The Devourers attacked with casual cruelty. They didn't bother to destroy the defending ships quickly. Instead, they played with them, using weapons that caused pain and fear rather than quick death. They wanted the aliens to suffer, to understand how hopeless their situation was. "This is Captain Zex Mora of the medical vessel Healing Light," came a desperate transmission. "We have over 3,000 wounded aboard from 12 different species. We're requesting safe passage to evacuate the injured." The response came not from the Devourers, but from the remaining alien commanders. "Negative, Healing Light," said War Marshal Yextar. "We cannot guarantee your safety. All ships must defend themselves as best they can." "But, sir, these are wounded soldiers, civilians. Some of them are children." "I'm sorry, Captain. We've lost the ability to protect anyone. Every ship is on its own now." Kim Tae-ho felt his jaw tighten. The aliens might have been arrogant and dismissive toward humans, but they didn't deserve this. No one deserved to watch their civilization being torn apart by an enemy they couldn't understand or fight. "Captain," Nam Ho-seok said quietly, "the medical ship won't last another 5 minutes. The Devourers are playing with the Defenders, but they'll get bored soon." Kim Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Earth Command's orders had been very specific. Observe until all conventional options were exhausted, then act only to protect humanity's interests. Saving alien wounded wasn't part of the mission, but Kim Tae-ho had been a soldier for 20 years before he became a starship captain. He had sworn oaths to protect the innocent, regardless of what species they belonged to. "Ryu Sang-wook," he said finally, "power up the quantum stabilizers, just enough to create a small interference field." "Captain?" the quantum engineer asked. "That will reveal some of our capabilities." "Not our real capabilities. Just enough to make the Devourers think we're another type of alien technology they need to adapt to." Kim Tae-ho turned to Jang Mi-kyung. Plot a course that takes us close to the medical ship. Make it look accidental, like we're just trying to escape and happen to get in the way. The Persistence began to move, leaving its safe position at the back of the formation. To any observer, it looked like the small human ship was simply running, away from the battle, taking the same route as several other fleeing vessels. But as they passed near the surrounded medical ship, Ryu Sang-wook activated the quantum stabilizers. The effect was subtle. The space around the medical ship became slightly more stable, making it harder for the Devourer weapons to affect the ship's hull. "What's happening?" asked the medical ship's captain over the radio. "Our hull integrity just improved dramatically." The Devourer ships attacking the medical vessel suddenly found their weapons less effective. They adapted quickly, of course, but the few extra minutes gave the medical ship time to escape with its cargo of wounded. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Zex Mora," came a grateful transmission. "Thank you for whatever you just did. 3,000 lives owe you their survival." Kim Tae-ho didn't respond. The Persistence continued on its course, pretending to flee like any other scared ship. But the brief intervention had cost them. Several Devourer vessels had noticed the quantum interference and were now moving to investigate. They had identified the Persistence as something that might be worth examining. "Captain," Nam Hoseok warned, "we have 3 enemy ships changing course to intercept us." "Let them come," Kim Tae-ho said. "It's time they got a closer look at human technology." The 3 Devourer ships were different from the others they had seen. These looked more like living creatures made of metal and energy. Their hulls rippled like skin, and they moved through space with the fluid grace of predators. As they approached the Persistence, they began scanning the human ship with sensors that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen before. The scans felt wrong, like being touched by something that shouldn't exist. "They're trying to understand our technology," Lee Do-yun reported. "But they're not getting much information. Our hull is designed to appear simpler than it really is." "Good. Let them think we're just another alien race with some unusual tricks." The lead Devourer ship fired a warning shot. The beam was carefully calibrated, strong enough to damage the Persistence but not destroy it. They wanted to capture the ship and study its technology. The beam struck the human ship's shields and was absorbed without any visible effect. To the Devourers, it probably looked like their first shot had been blocked by some kind of energy barrier. They fired again, this time with a different type of weapon, then again with a third type. Each shot was absorbed or deflected by the Persistence's defensive systems. "They're testing us," Kim Tae-ho observed, "trying to figure out what kind of shields we're using so they can adapt to them." "Should I let one of their shots through?" Lee Do-yun asked. "Make it look like they're damaging us?" "Not yet. Let them think we're tougher than we appear. It will make them more cautious." The Devourer ships were becoming frustrated. They had adapted to every other weapon and defense system in the galaxy within minutes, but the human ship was somehow resisting their attacks. They began to use more powerful weapons, beams that had easily destroyed alien battleships. The Persistence absorbed them all. "Captain," Choi Soo-jin said, "I'm picking up transmissions between the Devourer ships. They're confused. They're trying to figure out how we're blocking their attacks." Can you understand what they're saying? Not exactly. They don't use language the way we do. It's more like mathematical concepts expressed as emotions. But I think they're calling us an unexpected variable and a anomalous resistance pattern. Kim Tae-ho smiled grimly. Good. Let them be confused. Confusion leads to mistakes. Meanwhile, the rest of the alien fleet was continuing its desperate flight. The surviving ships were scattered across the nebula, trying to find places to hide or escape routes that might take them to safety. But the devourers were everywhere, hunting down the scattered vessels one by one. The transformation of the Persistence began with a sound. It was a deep humming that seemed to come from the ship's bones, a vibration that made the air itself feel different. To anyone watching from outside, it looked like the small human vessel was simply powering up its engines for a desperate escape attempt. They were very wrong. Beginning primary sequence activation, Lee Do-yoon announced from the engineering station. His hands moved across controls that had been hidden behind false panels for months. Hull reconfiguration in progress. The outer skin of the Persistence began to change. What had looked like patches and repairs started to slide away, revealing gleaming metal underneath. Sections of the hull that had appeared damaged suddenly opened like flowers, exposing arrays of equipment that belonged to no known technology. "What's happening to their ship?" came a confused transmission from one of the surviving alien vessels. "The human vessel is changing." Captain Kim Tae-ho ignored the radio chatter and focused on his crew. "Jang Mi-kyung, bring the spatial displacement drives online. Nam-ho-seok, activate the probability weapons. Ryu Sang-wook, begin quantum field generation." "Aye, Captain," they responded in unison. The three devourer ships that had been investigating the Persistence suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. The human ship was no longer just absorbing their attacks. It was doing something to the space around itself that made their sensors give impossible readings. "Captain," Choi Soo-jin reported, "the devourer ships are increasing their attack frequency. They're trying to overwhelm whatever defenses we're using." "Let them try," Kim Tae-ho said calmly. "Ryu Sang-wook, show them what happens when someone tries to force their way through a quantum barrier." The quantum engineer's fingers danced across his controls. Around the Persistence, space itself began to shimmer like heat waves on a summer day. The devourer weapons, which had been adapting to resist the ship's defenses, suddenly found that there were no defenses to adapt to. Instead, there was something much more frightening. The space between the devourer ships and the Persistence was becoming uncertain. The beams they fired existed and didn't exist at the same time. Their targeting systems couldn't lock onto a ship that was simultaneously in multiple locations. "Quantum superposition field active," Ryu Sang-wook reported. "The enemy cannot target what exists in all possible states simultaneously." But this was just the beginning. The real surprise came when the Persistence started to move. "Spatial displacement drive active," Jang Mi-kyung announced. "We are no longer bound by conventional movement through space." The ship didn't accelerate like normal vessels. Instead, it simply appeared in a new location, as if it had decided that it would rather be somewhere else, and the universe had agreed. One moment it was surrounded by devourer ships, the next it was behind them, then beside them, then somehow in all three places at once. Impossible, came a transmission from War Marshal Yextar's damaged command ship. How are they moving without engines? How are they in multiple places at the same time? The devourer ships were becoming agitated. Their perfect coordination was breaking down as they tried to track a target that wasn't following the rules of physics they understood. They had adapted to every weapon and defense system in the galaxy, but they had never faced an enemy that could simply decide not to be where attacks were aimed. "Captain," Nam-Ho-Seok said from the tactical station, "the enemy vessels are clustering together. I think they're preparing for a massive combined attack." "Perfect," Kim Tae-ho replied. "Time to show them why human weapons are different from everyone else's." He turned to his tactical officer. "Nam-Ho-Seok, target the lead devourer ship. Use the probability cannon." Nam-Ho-Seok's hands moved over controls that looked nothing like conventional weapon systems. Instead of buttons and switches, there were devices that looked like they belonged in a mathematics laboratory. Screens showed equations instead of targeting displays. "Probability cannon charged and ready," he reported. "Target locked in all. Possible futures. Fire." What happened next was unlike any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. The Persistence didn't shoot an energy beam or launch a missile. Instead, it fired pure mathematics at the enemy ship. The probability cannon didn't destroy its target in the normal sense. Instead, it changed the mathematical likelihood that the target would continue to exist. The devourer ship found itself caught in a cascade of increasingly unlikely events. Its hull began to fail in ways that violated the laws of physics. Its internal systems started working backward. Its weapons fired at itself. Within seconds, the ship was trapped in a loop of impossible events that made its continued existence mathematically improbable. It didn't explode or break apart. It simply became so unlikely that the universe stopped believing in it. The ship faded away like a dream when you wake up. "Direct hit," Nam-Ho-Seok reported calmly. "Target has been removed from the probability matrix." The remaining devourer ships stopped their attack completely. For the first time since the battle began, they seemed confused and uncertain. They had never encountered a weapon that attacked the mathematical foundations of reality itself. "They're trying to adapt," Ryu Sang-wook observed, watching his quantum sensors. "But they can't figure out how to become resistant to improbability." "That's because they're still thinking like normal weapons," Kim Tae-ho explained. "They assume that if they can't be hurt by energy or matter, they're safe. But we're not attacking them with energy or matter." "What are we attacking them with?" asked Lee Do-yeon. "Logic," Kim Tae-ho replied with a slight smile. "We're attacking them with pure logic and mathematics. We're changing the rules that govern whether they can exist at all." The second devourer ship tried a different approach. Instead of firing weapons, it attempted to ram the Persistence at faster-than-light speed. It was a desperate move, but one that had worked against other enemies. "Incoming collision," Jang Mi-kyung reported. "Impact in 3 seconds." "Activate temporal displacement," Kim Tae-ho ordered. The navigator's fingers moved across her strange controls. "Temporal displacement active. We are now existing 3 seconds ago. The Devourer ship passed harmlessly through empty space where the Persistence had been 3 seconds earlier. Meanwhile, the human ship was attacking from 3 seconds in the past, hitting the enemy vessel before it had even started its ramming attempt. "How is this possible?" came frantic transmissions from the surviving alien ships watching the battle. "They're attacking in the past. They're shooting at ships before the battle even starts." The third Devourer ship was the most intelligent of the group. Instead of trying to attack or ram the human vessel, it began to withdraw, sending complex signals to the rest of the Devourer fleet. It was trying to warn them about this new type of enemy. "The last ship is trying to escape," Nam Hosiok reported. "It's calling for reinforcements. We can't let it report back to the main fleet," Kim Tae-ho decided. "Not yet. We need more time to prepare." He turned to Ryo Sang-wook. "Can you create a causality loop around that ship?" "Easily, Captain. One temporal paradox coming up. The quantum engineer worked his controls with the skill of an artist painting a masterpiece. Around the fleeing Devourer ship, time began to curve back on itself. The ship found itself trapped in a loop where every action it took led back to the same moment, preventing it from escaping or sending its warning. Target contained in a closed, time-like curve, Ryo Sang-wook reported. It will be stuck in the same 30 seconds of time until we decide to release it. With the immediate threat neutralized, Kim Tae-ho opened a communication channel to the surviving alien ships scattered throughout the nebula. "Attention all vessels," he announced. "This is Captain Kim Tae-ho of the human ship Persistence. You have just witnessed the true capabilities of human military technology." The radio was silent for several seconds. Then War Marshal Yextar's voice came through, filled with shock and disbelief. "Captain Kim Tae-ho, how is what we just saw possible? Your weapons, they don't make sense. They violate the fundamental laws of physics." "No, War Marshal." Kim Tae-ho corrected gently. "They don't violate the laws of physics. They change the laws of physics. There's a difference." Commander Park Ji-woo's weak voice joined the conversation. His ship was badly damaged, but he was still alive. "Captain, I don't understand. How long have humans possessed such technology?" "We've had the basic theories for over a century," Kim Tae-ho replied. "The practical applications took another 50 years to develop, and we've been perfecting them in secret for the past 20 years, waiting for a situation exactly like this." "One. Waiting for the Devourers?" asked Yextar. "Waiting for an enemy that conventional weapons couldn't stop," Kim Tae-ho said. "We knew this day would come eventually. The universe is too big and too strange for normal warfare to work against. Every possible threat." Lee Do-yoon looked up from his engineering console. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting massive Devourer fleet movements. They're converging on our position from multiple directions. Thousands of ships." Kim Tae-ho nodded. "Expected. The 3 ships we just dealt with were probably scouts. Now the real fleet is coming to investigate." "Can your ship handle thousands of enemy vessels?" asked a Keth captain whose crystal ship was barely holding together. The main Devourer fleet arrived like a plague of darkness spreading across the stars. There were thousands of them. Ships that looked like living nightmares, vessels that had consumed entire civilizations, creatures that existed in ways that hurt to think about. They moved in perfect formation, confident that they would add this sector to their endless feast. They had no idea what they were about to face. "All human vessels, this is Captain Kim Tae-ho," he announced over the fleet communication channel. "Begin Operation Cascade. Remember, we are not fighting ships. We are fighting the concepts that allow these ships to exist." From his position on the bridge of the Persistence, Kim Tae-ho watched as his hidden fleet prepared to reveal the full extent of human ingenuity. The alien survivors, scattered throughout the nebula in their damaged ships, could only watch in amazement as space itself began to change around the human vessels. "Quantum field generators at maximum power," reported Ryu Sang-wook. "Local space-time is becoming malleable." The first sign that something was wrong came when the Devourer ships tried to scan the human fleet. Their sensors, which could analyze any form of matter or energy in the universe, suddenly began giving impossible readings. The human ships appeared to be made of materials that didn't exist, powered by energy sources that violated thermodynamics, and moving through dimensions that had no names. "Lee Do-yun," Kim Tae-ho ordered, "begin Phase 1 modifications to local physics." The chief engineer's hands moved across controls that looked more like musical instruments than ship controls. Initiating selective constant adjustment, the strong nuclear force is now variable within a 50-kilometer radius. Around the human fleet, one of the most fundamental forces in the universe became negotiable. The strong nuclear force, which held atomic nuclei together, was no longer a fixed constant. In some areas of space, it became weaker, causing matter to become unstable. In other areas, it became stronger, making atoms so tightly bound that they couldn't interact with normal matter. The leading Devourer ships hit the edge of this modified space and immediately began to fall apart. Their hulls, which had adapted to resist every known weapon, found themselves unable to maintain basic atomic structure. Some ships dissolved as their atoms simply let go of each other. Others became so dense that they collapsed into microscopic black holes. "What's happening to them?" asked War Marshal Yextar over the radio. His voice was filled with shock as he watched enemy vessels that had seemed invincible suddenly destroy themselves. "We changed the rules," Kim Tae-ho replied simply. "The Devourers adapted to fight in a universe where atomic forces work a certain way. We made this part of space work differently. But the Devourers were not helpless. They were already trying to adapt to the changed physics, their biomechanical systems working frantically to understand and overcome this new challenge. Some of the ships in the back of the formation were already showing signs of resistance to the modified nuclear forces. "They're adapting," Nam Ho-seok observed from his tactical station. "Estimated adaptation time, 4 minutes. "Then we don't give them 4 minutes, Kim Tae-ho decided. "All ships, initiate Cascade Protocol. Phase 2, Electromagnetic Spectrum Revision." Captain Park Min-ho's voice came over the fleet channel. "Quantum Pioneer beginning light speed adjustment, reducing photon velocity by 30% in combat zone." Suddenly, light itself began to move more slowly in the space around the battle. The Devourer ships, which relied on faster than light, Sensors and communications found their coordination breaking down as information moved too slowly between their vessels. Their energy weapons, which depended on electromagnetic radiation, began to weaken as photons lost their ability to carry sufficient energy. Phase 3, Kim Tae-ho continued. Gravitational constant modification. Captain Lee Hye-jin of the Probability Storm took control of this phase. Beginning gravity manipulation, making gravitational attraction repulsive within combat zone. This was the most dramatic change yet. Gravity, the force that held planets in orbit and kept stars burning, suddenly began pushing things apart instead of pulling them together. Devourer ships that had been flying in tight formation were suddenly repelled from each other. Their internal systems, designed to work in normal gravitational fields, began to malfunction as everything inside their hulls tried to fly apart. The alien survivors watching the battle could barely believe what they were seeing. The humans weren't just fighting the devourers. They were changing the fundamental nature of reality in the combat zone, making it impossible for the enemy ships to function. "This is impossible," whispered Commander Park Ji-woo from his damaged ship. "You can't just change the laws of physics. They're universal constants." "Not anymore," replied Captain Choi Dong-woo of the Paradox engine. "We spent 200 years learning that the universe is much more flexible than most species realize. Constants are only constant if you don't know how to change them. But even as hundreds of devourer ships were destroyed or disabled by the changing physics, more kept coming. And these new arrivals were different. They had learned from watching their allies fail, and they were already adapting to the modified physical laws. "Analysis complete," reported a new voice over the Devourer. "Fleet's communication frequency. The humans could intercept their transmissions, though understanding them required special computers designed to translate concepts that didn't exist in normal language. Enemy uses localized constant modification. Beginning counter-adaptation." The newest wave of Devourer ships began to change their structure in real time. They developed hulls that could function regardless of nuclear force strength, sensors that worked even when light moved slowly, and coordination systems that didn't depend on gravity or electromagnetic radiation. "They're adapting to our reality." "Modifications," Ryu Sang-wook warned. "Some of their ships are becoming resistant to the changed physics." Kim Tae-ho nodded grimly. He had expected this. The Devourers were incredibly adaptive, and even changing the laws of physics wouldn't stop them forever. "Time for Phase 4. He announced. "All ships prepare for quantum cascade initiation." This was the most dangerous part of the plan. What they were about to do had only been tested in computer simulations and small-scale experiments. If it went wrong, they could destroy not just the Devourer fleet, but the entire sector of space they were fighting in. "Captain," Lee Do-yun said quietly, "are you sure about this? If we lose control of the cascade, the effects could spread across light years. We could unmake entire star systems." "I know the risks," Kim Tae-ho replied. "But if we don't stop them here, they'll consume the entire galaxy. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save everything." He opened the fleet communication channel. "All human vessels synchronize quantum field generators. Prepare to initiate controlled cascade failure of local space-time. Around the human fleet, space itself began to crack, not in any visible way, but in deeper dimensions that only advanced sensors could detect. The mathematical relationships that defined how reality worked were being deliberately broken, creating areas where the normal rules of existence simply didn't apply. Cascade initiation in 10 seconds, announced Captain Park Min-ho. All ships, maintain safe distance from Cascade epicenter. The Devourer ships that had adapted to the modified physics suddenly found themselves facing something much worse than changed constants. They were facing regions of space where constants didn't exist at all, where the very concept of physical laws became meaningless. 5 seconds to cascade, Kim Tae-ho announced. He looked around at his crew, who were monitoring systems that no other species had ever imagined. Remember, we're not just soldiers today. We're performing the most complex engineering project in galactic history. 3 seconds. The Devourer fleet was in full attack mode now, thousands of ships racing toward the human positions. Their weapons were charging, their adaptation systems were working overtime, and their coordination was perfect. In any normal battle, the small human fleet would have been overwhelmed in minutes. But this was not a normal battle. 1 second. Kim Tae-ho took a deep breath. Initiate quantum cascade. Reality shattered. The effect began as a small distortion near the center of the Devourer formation, barely visible even to advanced sensors. But it spread quickly, following quantum principles that turned chaos into a weapon. Space-time began to fold in on itself, creating regions where cause and effect worked backward, where energy could exist without matter, where mathematics became poetry and physics became philosophy. The Devourer ships caught in the Cascade Zone found themselves in a place where adaptation was impossible, because there were no consistent rules to adapt to. One moment they were flying through normal space. The next, they were trying to exist in a reality where gravity flowed sideways, time moved in circles, and matter existed only as a probability function. Some ships simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but unmade at the conceptual level. Others became trapped in recursive loops where they continuously created and destroyed themselves. A few managed to escape, but they emerged from the Cascade Zone so fundamentally changed that they were no longer recognizable as the same vessels that had entered. Cascade is stable and contained, reported Ryu Sang-wook, his voice filled with relief. 3 hours after the battle ended, representatives from every surviving alien species were aboard the Persistence. The small human ship that they had mocked and dismissed was now the most important vessel in the galaxy. The conference room, which had seemed tiny compared to alien meeting halls, was packed with beings who had come to understand that size meant nothing when you could reshape reality itself. War Marshal Yextar sat at the far end of the table, his massive mantis-like form somehow looking smaller than before. The proud warrior who had dismissed humans as inferior now stared at Captain Kim Tae-ho with something approaching awe. Commander Park Ji-woo was there too, though his ship was so badly damaged that he had to be transported by rescue shuttle. The Vrex commander, who had called humans toy boat operators just days ago, now looked at the human captain with genuine respect. Captain Kim Tae-ho, War Marshal Yextar began, his voice careful and formal. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we misunderstood humanity's capabilities. Kim Tae-ho nodded politely. It was an understandable mistake, War Marshal. We wanted you to misunderstand. Why? Asked Captain Zex Mora, the medical officer who had been saved during the early part of the battle. Why hide such incredible technology? Why let us think you were weak? Lee Do-yun, sitting beside his captain, answered for him. Because if we had shown you what we could really do from the beginning, you would have tried to steal our technology or force us to use it for your wars. You would have seen us as a weapon instead of people. A Thaylan representative flickered in and out of visibility as it spoke. But the Devourers, how long have you known they were coming? We didn't know about the Devourers specifically, Kim Tae-ho explained. But we knew that someday the galaxy would face a threat that conventional weapons couldn't handle. It was inevitable. He gestured to the display screen, which showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking Devourer attacks. The universe is vast and full of things that don't follow the rules we're comfortable with. We knew that eventually someone would encounter something that was beyond normal military capabilities. Ryo Sang-wook, the quantum engineer, pulled up technical displays that made the aliens' eyes hurt to look at. We began developing reality manipulation technology over 200 years ago. At first it was just theoretical physics, ways to understand how the universe really worked beneath the surface. But theory became practice, added Nam Ho-seok. We learned that the laws of physics weren't really laws at all. They were more like habits, patterns that the universe followed because it had always followed them. Commander Park Ji-woo leaned forward, wincing from his injuries. You're saying you can change the fundamental constants of reality just by deciding to? Not just by deciding, Jang Mi-kyung explained. It takes enormous amounts of calculation and energy. We have to convince the universe, on a quantum level, that different rules would work better in a specific area. Choi Soo-jin showed them recordings of the battle, slowed down and analyzed frame by frame. When we changed the strong nuclear force, we weren't forcing it to be different. We were providing mathematical proof that a different value would be more stable in that region of space. The aliens stared at the technical readouts in amazement. War Marshal Yextar shook his massive head. This is beyond anything we imagined possible. You don't just have advanced technology, you have a completely different understanding of how reality works. That's exactly right, Kim Tae-ho confirmed. While your species were building bigger guns and stronger shields, we were learning that the biggest gun of all is the ability to change what big means. A crystal mind representative sparkled as it processed this information. The implications are staggering. If you can modify physical constants, you could solve energy problems, create new forms of matter, even extend the lifespan of stars. We've done all of those things, Lee Do-yun said quietly. Earth's sun should have burned out 50 million years ago. We've been maintaining it by adjusting the fusion processes in its core. The conference room fell silent as the aliens absorbed this information. They were beginning to understand that humanity wasn't just more advanced than they had thought. Humanity was operating on a completely different level of existence. "Captain," War Marshal Yextar said finally, "what happens now?" "The Devourers are attacking systems across the galaxy. Can your people stop all of them?" Kim Tae-ho looked around the table at the alien representatives. A few days ago, these beings had treated humans like children who needed supervision. Now they were asking for salvation. "We can stop them," he said, "but not alone, and not by just using our technology to solve your problems." "What do you mean?" asked Commander Park Ji-woo. "I mean that this is your galaxy too," Kim Tae-ho explained. "We're not going to become the new military force that protects everyone else. We're not going to replace your armies with our reality manipulation technology." Choi Soo-jin brought up communication logs from across human space. "Captain, we're receiving reports from all human fleets. The Devourers are being eliminated systematically. Earth Command estimates complete victory within 72 hours. 72 hours, War Marshal Yextar asked in disbelief. "But there are thousands of Devourer fleets attacking hundreds of systems. There are also 300 human ships equipped with reality manipulation technology," Nam Ho Seok replied. "Each one capable of eliminating threats that your entire combined fleet couldn't handle." Ryu Sang-wook showed them the tactical displays. The Devourers' greatest strength was their ability to adapt to conventional weapons. But they can't adapt to weapons that change the fundamental rules they exist by. A Morvac shadow being drifted closer to the table. "If you can eliminate the Devourers so easily, why do you need us at all?" Kim Tae-ho's expression became serious. "Because the Devourers aren't the real problem. They're just a symptom." He stood up and walked to the main display, bringing up images of the galaxy's political structure. "Look at how the galaxy is organized. Thousands of species, each convinced that their way of doing things is best, each one building bigger weapons to prove their superiority over the others." The display showed the military capabilities of different species. Massive fleets, planet-destroying weapons, reality-bending technologies that the aliens had shown off just days ago. "You built all of this to fight each other," Kim Tae-ho continued. "And when something came from outside the galaxy, something that didn't follow your rules, all of your weapons were useless." War Marshal Yextar's mandibles clicked together nervously. "Are you saying this is our fault?" "I'm saying this is inevitable when civilizations focus on building better ways to destroy instead of better ways to understand," Kim Tae-ho replied. "The Devourers came from a part of the universe where different physical laws apply. Your weapons couldn't stop them because your weapons were designed to work within your understanding of physics." Lee Do-yun pulled up displays showing the wreckage from the earlier battle. "Every species in this room built weapons designed to overpower other species in this galaxy. None of you built weapons designed to handle truly alien threats." "But you did," observed the Thalan representative. "We did," Kim Tae-ho confirmed. "Not because we're smarter or better, but because we approach the problem differently. Instead of asking, how do we build a bigger gun, we asked, how do we change the nature of the battlefield itself?" Jang Mi-kyung brought up star charts showing human space. "For 2 centuries, humanity has been developing technology not for conquest, but for adaptation. We built tools that could handle whatever the universe might throw at us. Commander Park Ji-woo looked confused. But why? What made you think so differently from the rest of us? Kim Tae-ho smiled, and for the first time since the battle, it was a genuinely warm smile. Because humans have always been the small fish in a big pond. On our own planet, we weren't the strongest or fastest or most dangerous species. We survived by being adaptable and clever. When we reached space and met all of you, Choi Soo-jin added, we realized we were still the small fish. Your ships were bigger, your weapons more powerful, your civilizations older and more advanced. So we did what humans have always done, Ryu Sang-wook continued. We found a different way to compete. Instead of trying to build bigger ships, we learned to build better universes for our ships to operate in. War Marshal Yextar was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he had heard. Captain Kim Tae-ho, what do you want from us? Partnership, Kim Tae-ho replied simply. The Devourers are gone, but they won't be the last threat the galaxy faces. The universe is full of things that don't follow our rules, and some of them are going to be even stranger than creatures that eat reality. What kind of partnership? Asked the Crystal Mind representative. We share our knowledge, Nam Ho-seok explained. Not our weapons, but our ways of thinking about problems. We teach you to see the universe as something flexible and changeable, not as a set of fixed rules you have to work within. In return, Lee Do-yeon added, you share your knowledge with us, your understanding of biology, your industrial capabilities, your cultural perspectives. Humans are good at changing reality, but we're not good at everything. Jang Mi-kyung brought up new star charts showing potential exploration routes.